for women and children are viewed as less than in this particular cult.
Yes. Women
So, I mean, that should immediately
created for men.
deter a significant percentage of people from joining in the first place, I would imagine.
It is, but you don't
would you
know
say
that.
It doesn't?
You don't know that until you are already indoctrinated. It's a slow process. You know, like I said earlier, they start manipulating you early on until you're in. And then it's like, oh no, what have I done? It's too late, you know? And a lot of people don't like to admit they made a mistake, so they stay.
Because I've already gotten rid of my friends and...
Yeah.
The Tom Screen podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts and we can help in this area. We offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call and the link is in the description. Enjoy the episode.
Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Sally Lotz. Sally, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
I sure can. Well, I am a published children's author. I've written and published 4 books. I am also a writing coach where I help people to write their books in 30 days. And I'm a mentor. So I love doing that.
Thank you for the introduction. This is one of those episodes where I think I've got a lot of admiration for the fact that you come in on and telling your story, because I think that it benefits others. And so with that, would you like to start by telling your story?
I would. I'd love to tell my story. And I'm not shy about it. I actually wrote about it as well. I was actually writing as a young child, doing all sorts of, plays and little school projects. But my mom when I was around age 6, she joined a cult. And it's a very well-known cult called the Jehovah's Witnesses. And from that point on, my life changed drastically. She also married a man who was very abusive. And so I went from having this idyllic childhood to having everything taken away from me that children, enjoy. Birthday parties, Christmas, here in the States, we have Thanksgiving and we have Easter. And so all those things suddenly became evil. And as years went on, I kind of didn't understand this Jehovah and why he hated things so much and why he didn't want us to have fun. And of course, the Jehovah's Witnesses always have reasons why, but it just didn't make any sense to me. And then I had my stepfather who was extremely abusive in every sense of the word, sexually, physically, emotionally. And if you're not familiar with the Jehovah's Witnesses, they have something called a 2-witness rule, where you cannot report something that someone has done to you, whether it's they stole your car, you're being abused, whatever it is, unless you have 2 witnesses. And so not very many people are going to go and report abuse. And I say that as well, they're not allowed to go to the police or any authorities either. That is something that is called shaming Jehovah. So you really have this very specific set of guidelines and rules that you must follow, or you can be disfellowshipped. So as a young person who was being abused, as my mother was being abused, and my sisters, we had no outlet, and our voice would have been shunned, and then we would have been the ones punished while my stepfather was allowed to continue doing what he was doing. So that's what happened, is he was allowed to continue in the community as well, because he was never stopped. I don't know how much damage he did. But my story came about when I was 15, and my mother found out that I had a boyfriend who was not a Jehovah's Witness. And I used that term boyfriend loosely because we basically held hands. We met at the library, it wasn't this great big romance, right? I was pulled in to talk to the elders for counseling, where now the elders are always men. I was 15, and I'm sitting across the table from 3 old guys who were questioning me very sexually explicit questions about my relationship with this boy who I really only held hands with. And that's when my light bulb moment happened. And I said, this is crazy. I live with a monster. Nothing happens to him. I'm holding hands in the hallway at school and I'm being punished. And so that was the point where I decided I was done and I needed to get out. And my mom asked me, I had to make a choice to either serve Jehovah or the boy. And I told her, I'm taking the boy. And so, which she did not think was, that was not what she thought I was going to say. And so I ended up leaving home at age 15 and started a rocky journey forward, trying to get my footing. And it took me a while, couple of failed marriages, until I finally got into my groove with my writing and just doing what I love. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Thank you for telling your story. And
You're welcome.
I'm very sorry that you had to actually go through all that awful stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
First question is more of a knowledge from my part.
Okay.
Around, I wasn't aware that Jehovah's Witnesses were a cult. I know that religions can sometimes fall into being a bit culty, and there's quite a fine line between religions and cults.
Mhm.
Is it the case that it is all the cult, or is there some religion part of Jehovah's Witnesses?
So they have been around for a long time. So they've been around since the mid 1800s. And actually the Seventh-day Adventists are an offshoot of them. And I think that they did not start as a cult. However, over the years and through the changing of leadership, they have become a cult. So there's about 10 things that make up a cult, and they hit all 10. So, and of course, if you ask a Jehovah's Witness, they will tell you, no, it's not a cult, but they have a group of leaders who God is the only one who talks to. And in fact, they call their God Jehovah. So Jehovah talks to only the leaders, which is, I think it's 12 men. And those 12 men then trickle down to what is written in the publications and what is preached at the kingdom halls. And then they have another level of men who oversee, and they call them overseers, oversee areas. And then they have the elders in the congregations who take care of the congregations. And so from the bottom up, it's children, then the moms, then the dads, and then the elders. And so children very low, women very low, absolutely no voices. I also talked about disfellowshipping, which means if you break the rules, which can change, you are shunned, which means your entire family, your friends, entire congregation around you will no longer talk to you. If they see you in public, they will turn away and they will turn their back on you, which is why many people don't leave, because they don't want to lose their family, or they're married and they have children, so they can't leave. There's a lot of other rules and things that people don't know about. Higher education is discouraged. when you see them out on the street corners, I'm not sure what they do where you live. I think they probably stand on corners with carts or they go knocking on doors. That's a requirement.
It's the latter, yeah.
It's
You
not
can get
voluntary.
a knock on the door.
Get the knock on the door. Okay. It's not voluntary. It's a requirement, and they must do a certain number of hours per week. And there's different levels for different people. Some people choose to do 40 hours a week, and they have to record it and they have to turn it in, like report how many people they talked to, how many hours they talked, how many Bible studies they did, how much literature they gave out. So I don't know any religion where any of those few things I just said are part of. In fact, just leaving, if you're going to a church that you don't like or you don't feel connected to, you can leave and there's no consequences. You can go visit any type of church. I could walk into a synagogue. I could walk into a Catholic church. I could walk into a mosque, and there would be no consequences for me, as I'm a Christian woman. So for me, there's no consequences. However, if I was a Jehovah's Witness, there would be consequences.
So the do as you say, or this will happen, is kind of an alarm bell there. Would you say there are any others that people need to watch out for so they don't fall into something such as this?
Yeah, they quickly love bomb you. And they typically talk to people about pain. They find someone's pain point very quickly. And you have to remember, Jehovah's Witnesses are very well trained. They go to 3 meetings a week. This is all they do. They're trained to find your pain point. And then they draw you in slowly. It's a slow process, which usually starts with love bombing and lots of attention. And then they encourage you to, this is the very big culty thing. They encourage you to get rid of the things around you that will be discouraging to you or will take you away from this path you're on. Get rid of the people who are telling you, don't do that, don't do that. They want you to focus on Jehovah. And they slowly take things out of your life. And then all of a sudden you look around and like all your friends are gone, but you cut them off.
Yeah. It's like the removal of options, right? So that you've only really got one option left, and that's the cult.
Correct. And because they go for people who have these pain points, sometimes people are in a depressive state and they're not thinking clearly. And a love bomb is just what they need. So a love bomb is where everybody comes around you and just shows you all this attention that maybe you haven't ever had. And you just think, wow, what a great environment. This is going to be my life,
And I'd like to know what your thoughts are on this in relation to what percentage, if you could estimate, do people know that it's a purposeful, harmful thing? And what percentage would you say are just unaware and they have good intentions but are producing bad results? Have you got any thoughts on that?
I talk to a lot of people, and I want to say, for me, I think it's about 50-50. Okay. I feel like there's a lot of people there who know it's wrong and they know what's going on. And it's an environment for them to continue doing what they want to do. That being, someone who's abusive, it's the perfect environment. And I also feel like there's a lot of very kind-hearted people who believe they are doing the right thing and they are truly saving people's lives. But they're still in a cult, and they're still, it's not purpose. There's nothing purposeful about it, but it is making them feel good. So I want to say 50-50.
Thank you for that. And what age were you first introduced to it, approximately?
I was 6. Yeah.
So almost a decade it took to get out then.
It did. And, as a child, I didn't have a choice in any of this. This was just like, this is your life now. And I think I always gave my children the choice. I went to church and things like that. And it was, it was ended up being their choice. I never forced them to do anything because it has to be from your own heart and your own beliefs, right? But here I'm stuck in this cult and I didn't really have any choices where to go either. It's like I was just a kid. Like, what am I going to do?
And had you ever, after you got out and maybe you were able to sort of work through your thoughts a little bit, did you ever have a conversation with your mum about that process? Any conclusions or closure there?
I've had many conversations with my mom. And then for years, it was just, let's not talk about this topic because she would just get angry. She doesn't have the ability to have a conversation because her mind is so wrapped around Jehovah and she can't see clearly beyond that. So her immediate response is get angry. But the last conversation I had with her, this was when I was writing my book. I just said, Mom, you never stood up for your kids. And you still to this day say that you never did anything wrong. And I said, you followed the guidance of men who told you to go back into a home where all this abuse was going on. And you're a mom and you're a parent, and your first instincts should have been to protect your children. And she said, well, I did the best I could with what I had. And I said, I just told her I didn't buy that. That's an excuse because before that, she had a marriage that she got out of, and it was a bad marriage for a similar situation. And so I didn't buy that at all. And she just got mad at me. It's like, so for me, I had to just move myself away from it because she just denies any wrong. She denies that that's going on in the house. She denied, like literally like it never happened. And I know that he hurt a lot of other people because we moved a lot. And I had some other people recently on the side find me on Facebook, found my book, and then they kind of told me a few things. And so I know that his swath was very wide and not limited to the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Thank you for sharing that. Have you ever named this person in your book?
I have. I've named him. I tried to go to the police. But my abuse that I experienced was not what my sibling experienced. And she is the one who experienced a lot of trauma and he did a lot to her. So I wasn't able to report anything because for me, it was mostly physical and emotional. You can't go to the police for emotional abuse. And my sister is still a Jehovah's Witness and she won't do anything. And I tried to do, there's some attorneys that are doing like a class action lawsuit, and I tried to get in on that. But again, my personal experience wasn't enough for them. It needed to be my sister. And she's not ever going to do that. I used to go out to the carts in my neighborhood in California and talk to the women and show them his picture in case he was at one of their kingdom halls. But really nobody had any interest. They all called me a liar. So yeah.
So your sister has suffered abuse, but she still is in it anyway.
She is, and her husband was an elder. My brother is an elder. My sister is one of those who does the 40-hour a week, door to door. Might not be 40 hours anymore. It used to be. I think they dropped it down, but she's very, very religious. Yeah.
And have you thought about why that is? I was going to follow up with a question about your mum and the fact that she wasn't able to I don't know, face the reality might be my interpretation. I was going to say why, but you got other family members as well who are perhaps maybe in denial, maybe just duped in some way. Why do you think that that's the case?
Oh, they are definitely in denial. So I do have 3 sisters, and all 3 of them deny what this man is. In fact, my younger sister, who it's actually her dad, has a relationship with him where her children were allowed to be around him. And I can't tell you, even me just thinking about right now, how angry I was with that. And I don't understand it. I don't know why, if somebody tells you this is happening, that you would let your children be around this man, even though he's your dad. I think it's all to do with the cult mindset, is that they are told that Jehovah is going to take care of it and they need to rely on Jehovah. And going to the police is never an option. Going to the authorities is never an option. In fact, I just was reading the news today. There was a $40 million settlement from a man in Hawaii who was abused, and he just got a settlement from the Watchtower Society, which is the Jehovah's Witnesses, because they did not report the abuse and they kept counseling him to go home, and they protected the abuser. So it's not just me, it's not just my family, it's a very widespread issue.
Yeah. And my interpretation of your answer is like, if you follow a particular blueprint, sort of what we talked about previously, then you can sort of manipulate some human beings into thinking a particular way. And even what you said about like the not going to the authorities, if you take that off the table, obviously they're the only ones that can do anything about it. So obviously, if you were running a cult, that's the first thing you would do, is to make sure that whatever the options are, it's never to go to the police, because they're the ones that can stop it, right?
Correct. And
Just in theory, anyway.
For me, I had a lot of family members who were not Jehovah's Witnesses. My mom had sisters. I had a dad, and he had a large family. So for me, if I had not been cut off from all of these people, if I had not been afraid of like going to a teacher, because that was an authority, or the school principal, that was an authority, I probably could have just said one thing to somebody and that would have been the end of it. And I don't beat myself up over that, because I was a child and I was, taught, that's how you behave. But I do, when I see Jehovah's Witness children, I do talk to them and I do tell them, it's okay to go to the police. It's okay to talk to a teacher. It's okay to tell somebody you trust about something that's happening. Jehovah's not going to hate you. That's what they teach them.
What do they say to that?
They usually just kind of look at me wide-eyed, but I want them to know that it's okay. I'm probably the only person that's told them that.
Well done for doing that, because I think that a lot of people are very hesitant to get involved in, let's say, other people's children. But when it comes to their safety, obviously it's necessary. So
if they're coming to my door, knocking on my door to sell me a watchtower, I feel like it's okay for me to talk to them.
They kind of invited it, right?
They invited themselves over. Yeah.
At any point, did you regret leaving?
No. I hated that whole life. I've never regretted leaving. What I don't like is that it's destroyed my family. I have 6 siblings, and we all just kind of scattered to, survival mode. And so that's what I don't like. I don't regret that, but I don't like the outcome. I'm happy I left.
Good.
Yeah.
And at this moment, there is probably, or I would say almost certainly, someone who is considering joining the Jehovah's Witnesses. What would you say to them?
I would say that it would be one of the biggest mistakes that you could make in your life. Just do an internet search on the abuse. The Jehovah's Witnesses like to come across as biblical scholars. But if you keep in mind that they made up their Jehovah, and all of their books and literature has been like, they've changed their Bible to fit Jehovah so that they can manipulate you. That alone to me is scary. But I would say do the research and be aware that there's a lot of manipulation going on, and that there's a lot of people who are trapped there who can't leave. They are not going to tell you as you're walking in this door all the things that you have to do to maintain this relationship with Jehovah. I mean, this is weird. This is going to sound really strange, but you know how you always see Jehovah's Witnesses dressed nicely? You never see one coming to your door, you know, and like you'll never see a woman coming to your door in slacks or jeans or anything. They're always dressed nicely. So when you walk into a Kingdom Hall, you're required to dress like that as well. So little kids are in suits and ties. Women are in dresses. Men are in suits as well. Yeah, all their grooming, everything they do is they're told how to dress and how to groom themselves. So they'll start telling you, you know, you can come to a meeting, but you can't come like that. You know, I would say, warning, warning, run away.
Like slow compliance, is that what you mean?
Slow compliance, yes. They will not let you come to a Kingdom Hall until they think you're ready. And just go to a meeting off the street yourself. Just look up a meeting when it is and walk in your street clothes and see what happens. It's very uncomfortable.
You use the term Kingdom Hall. What is that?
They do not use the word church or synagogue or mosque because they believe anything that's outside of Jehovah's Witnesses is Christendom, or Babylon, as I like to call it, and it is Satan. It is literally the devil. And so they say Kingdom Hall. They don't say church services, they call it meetings. So any way that they can disassociate themselves with being a religion or a church, they will, which is why most of the buildings have no windows. They're just usually like a brick or a block construction. Very ugly.
And what is the difference between like a normal sort of, other than the fact that you can't leave very easily, of course, which you covered, was the difference between, let's say, going to a church gathering and going to a Kingdom Hall meeting?
I've actually gone to a church, sat halfway through a service and left. I've gone to churches for 3 months, not felt like it was a good fit for me, and I've left. All different denominations. And I've met friends there, and some of them were still friends. Nobody stopped talking to me. Nobody gave me, you know, like a phone call saying, where are you? Why aren't you here? Nobody stalked me afterwards. You know, it was my choice to go where I felt the best for me. And that to me is a big difference. Also,
other than that, you have like the guy at the front of the room sort of lecturing and everyone sitting in the seats listening. Is that pretty much the
yeah,
format?
so for me, my church is usually we have a worship team that starts the service where we have a lot of singing and everybody's singing and there's music and there may be some people dancing, there may be lots of waving of hands. And then, you know, we usually have a pastor who preaches on a subject. And the Kingdom Hall, the singing is typically done out of a book, and everybody's singing standing still. And the services are the same, no matter where you go, any given day. So this Sunday, the service here in Florida will be the same as the one where you live. And always men. Women are not allowed to pray. Women are not allowed to lead. My church, we have women get up and pray. We have a women-led prayer team, the worship team that sings. It's like 95% women, and there's one guy, you know, so that's a big difference to me.
So should we say for women and children are viewed as less than in this particular cult.
Yes. Yes. Women
So, I mean,
are
that should
created
immediately
for men.
deter a significant percentage of people from joining in the first place, I would imagine.
It is, but you don't
would you
know
say it
that.
doesn't?
You don't know that until you're already indoctrinated. It's a slow process. You know, like I said earlier, they start manipulating you early on until you're in. And then it's like, oh no, what have I done? It's too late, you know? And a lot of people don't like to admit they made a mistake, so they stay.
Because I've already gotten rid of my friends, and is money involved in this decision? They ask you to invest a load of money in something normally with cults.
So they don't talk about money a lot, but they do ask for giving. They talk about giving to for the greater need. Those women and men that you see out on the streets and the books and things they have to buy all that themselves, and they give it out. So that costs a lot of money. And they ask for donations for everything. So they don't pass a plate like they do in church. Well, most churches don't do that anymore. They just have a big box and they ask you to donate. But they always have a reason why. You know, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that. And kind of makes me sad because my mom is 83 now, and she basically lives in poverty, and she still gives, even though she doesn't have anything to give, and they don't help her. But they have a $40 million lawsuit they have to pay for. So it has to come from somewhere.
Yeah. 40 million is a lot of donations. But I was under the impression, did you stop speaking to your mum at some stage?
My mom lived with me for a while, and when COVID hit, after that, I kind of went into a depressive state, and I just realized after talking to my therapist that it was because I had this person living with me who was giving me PTSD, and at that point, I just decided that relationship wasn't good for me. And I still was talking to her at that point, but when she found out about my book that came out, which is called The Truth is a Lie, because they call themselves the one and only true religion, they call themselves the truth. She called me up one day and was screaming and yelling at me. And that was kind of the end. So, but every now and then there's a communication, but it's nothing. It's not like a mother and daughter should be. Yeah.
Presumably that's because, I mean, 100% on your side with this particular point, but presumably that's because she gets shunned as a result of your book. Is that reason why she's upset?
Oh, yeah. In their world, I'm considered what's called an apostate. I'm speaking lies about them. And so really, she shouldn't have any contact with me at all. Yeah.
You've been through a lot, and I don't know. Again, I have a lot of admiration for you based on the fact that you're talking about it. Because you've done the work and to some degree worked through it. If someone has just gotten out of it or is struggling with similar scenarios that you've been through, what do you tell that person?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who come out of other cults. And my thing is, I didn't do this when I got out, and I should have. Get into therapy right away, because your mind is hanging on to all of this garbage, even though you think you've let it go. And it's going to come back to you in forms of depression, anxiety, PTSD. And also, your mind was reprogrammed to think a certain way. And a lot of people lose that empowerment and the mindfulness. And you need to get that back, but you need to retrain yourself. So there are therapists who work with religious trauma, it's called, with PTSD, But find somebody who's going to walk you through this process. Don't try to do it on your own. And then surround yourself with a group. I belong to a group here called the Jehovah's Witness group. And we meet once a month, and it's great. We have a potluck and we just talk about all the silly things we used to do. So that's what I recommend.
Yeah, I wasn't aware there are therapists that actually specialize in that.
Yeah,
but you're part of a group. What's an example of silly things that you used to do?
Going door to door. Some of the women were told their skirts were too short, but they were already below the knee, and they got corrected, in front of everyone else for having a shirt. Their clothing wasn't modest enough. So we just talk about stuff like that, or like the dating pool. The dating pool is 5 women to 1 man, and Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in premarital sex. They don't believe in dating until you're getting married. So we're just going to imagine what that's like. Why so many get married so young. And one of the girls told me that in her congregation there was one elder who was single, and then another gentleman who was single. And the elder was not a very attractive man, but all the women were going after him because he was an elder, and they wanted that spot in the congregation. So that was our joke, was if you're single and you want to get married, go to a Kingdom Hall. If you're a man, don't go if you're a woman.
I don't want to say, what do you make of all this? Like, what do you make of that type of scenario?
It just proves to me more and more what a cult it is. So much control that you're told how you can dress, and if it's inappropriate and it's still below your knee, you're told you're distracting a man by what you're wearing, and then go for the elder. It's crazy.
Well, you mentioned the book. How was it to write the book from an emotional perspective?
Early on, I didn't really want to write it because I write for children, so that goes up to age 18. I didn't want to write a memoir. I also didn't think anybody really cared, because I thought, so what? I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, But then things started happening around me that just showed me that I needed to write it. And it was a little bit of a healing process at the beginning, but then it was more of an awareness project. As I was talking to people about growing up in a cult, they kept telling me, you didn't grow up in a cult, it's the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I found myself explaining over and over again. I went, okay, so most people don't think this is a cult. So my book became an awareness book. It is written for young adults. It is fiction, but it's based on all the facts of my life and a couple of other young people who I met. And I just kind of entwined them all together. So for me, it's awareness, and I'm giving back in my way, taking them down. So for me, there was a little bit of times where it was traumatic and I got a little bit angry. But I took care of that during the editing process and cleaned it up.
Are you proud of what you created?
I am. What really makes me proud is when I read reviews from people, when an ex-Jehovah's Witness will message me on Facebook and tell me that they just read my book, and they had to stop a few times because I really nailed the emotional, the feelings, the emotions, and all the things that they go through. And so that happened to me a long time ago, and I still remembered it.
And has anyone reached out as a result kind of as an advice, what do I do in this scenario type thing?
I haven't gotten there yet. The Jehovah's Witnesses are very not really like on the internet too much looking for material like mine. But that's not to say they're not going to come across it. I get a lot of activity on TikTok now. And so I'm starting to see some comments pop up from people. So I'm hoping, I'm really hoping it's for the hands of teens. It's really meant for teenagers, but it's an adults read it as well. To be aware of people in their life who may be in this cult and what they could be going through. And like I said, for me, it was a few kind acts of random people in my life who opened up some doors for me and made me see, hey, the people in the outside world, they're not what I'm being told they are. And so it kind of piqued a little bit of interest, which is why I had that boyfriend in the first place, because I was starting to see the outside world was not Satan and this bad place, that there was people who actually were happy and had lives. So it's an awareness of like, you don't know what your one kind word can do to somebody else, and your awareness of them can do. That goes for everybody, I think.
It's not just churches and mosques. It's like the whole outside world is Satan.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what were the doors that were open to you that kind of helped you follow the breadcrumbs, if you will?
I was lucky enough to be in a school at this time where there was no other Jehovah's Witnesses and none of my siblings were there. And so, I mean, I had nobody to tattletale on me and tell what I was doing. So it kind of let me have some friendships for the first time in my life. And again, they weren't really deep friendships because I wasn't allowed to have what they call worldly friends. But a few people, who kind of just, like sometimes it would just be lending me, their book for the day because I forgot to do my homework, or somebody who took me under their wing in art class and helped me with a project, or, it was always a struggle for me in school because I wasn't really supposed to be around anybody, so I tried to stay under the radar. So it was, somebody who just said hi to me and sat with me at lunch, just
it does
made
sound a
me
lot
aware.
The people who are in, or maybe a significant percentage of the people who are in the Jehovah's Witnesses, that they're victims. Would you say that that's fair?
Yes. The more and more that I talk to people and the more and more that I see people getting out, the more I see a victim coming out. And it maybe not as severe as what I had, but definitely stuck in a relationship with somebody, victimized by an elder, victimized by, they say brother and sister, which is somebody else in the congregation who's either male or female. So victimized by a brother or a sister. Even if you don't want to stay there and you want to leave because you don't believe in Jehovah, you're immediately a victim because you have to stay or they don't talk to you anymore. So,
Well, I really appreciate you sharing everything, and especially writing the book. It takes us sort of to current times. You've mentioned a few different mental health, should we say, concerns. To what degree is your past? Do you have to deal with your past on a day-to-day basis? Is it, how much would you say is it still with you?
When it really comes up is when there's a holiday and I don't have like a family around me. That kind of hurts, it kind of stings. But day to day, it doesn't hurt me or affect me because I'm beyond it. Of course, I would love to have a relationship with my mom. I would love to have a relationship with my siblings, but that's kind of something that's, up to them at this point. I think that would be about it. I mean, just I get the daily reminder, as soon as I go on my social media and see somebody who's commented on being an ex-Jehovah's Witness. So
How do you mean? Sorry, I'm not sure I followed.
I just have the daily reminder that that was my past. That's where I came from. Because somebody will comment on one of the ex-Jehovah's Witness boards, and because I'm on them, and I'm continually making positive comments and encouraging people. And so it's my past, it's where I came from, but it's not who I am now, I guess is what I'm saying. And but it's just a little daily reminder when I'm on there, like, yeah, that's where you came from.
Would you say
but
that's
you're out of it
is
now?
that positive or negative?
I think it's positive.
Okay.
I think it's positive because I'm using it all in a positive way. I could be angry. I could be, just living in that past, wallowing in it and not trying to move out of it. So I'm using my experience for good.
Well done again. I think you're brilliant for creating something which is going to help other people as a result of your experience. Do you have any closing thoughts that you want to share?
I usually tell people just to have that moment of kindness, and it goes for anybody, if they're in the Jehovah's Witnesses or not. Just being kind to another human being, smiling and saying hello to somebody that you're walking by who's a stranger. You don't know what that person's going through. You could be the only person they talk to that day. And then of course I always like to say, get a copy of my book, and then you will really understand what the Jehovah's Witnesses are about. And they need to not be around anymore. They need to go away. I don't know how to make that happen other than how I've used my words and written about it.
Well, cults they're particularly difficult to get rid of, but if no one is talking about a problem, then it's not going to be solved, right? If people are just being silent about it, then no one knows. But now you've opened up the discussion. I would say it's definitely the first step to dealing with the problem.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If nobody knows what's going on, if there's no awareness and nobody's talking about it, it's just going to keep going on.
So well done to you. If people want to buy the book, where do they go?
Well, it's super easy. You can go to my website, which is sallylotz.com. And I have a section where my books are, and it has a link that'll take you to get one. And there's also a link if you want an autographed copy. That's the easiest way to do it. It's available in paperback and in Kindle version. No audiobook at this point. Is
that coming?
I would love to do an audiobook. I need an investor who would like to invest in me. So if there's anybody out there, I'd welcome it.
All right. Well, again, well done for what you've created, Sally. Thanks for being a great guest today and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.